Good morning, and welcome to Making Sense of It. I am Mona Duncan, your moderator, and this program is our gift to you from the Glasser Institute for Choice Theory. Each week, we have a certified member come with us and give some instructions on how to use choice theory and reality therapy and lead management. And every meeting is different, but this one is even more different for me, the host, in that I am the subject of this interview. Sue Tomaszewski is
close enough.
Yeah,
Tomaszewski.
Tomaszewski is a faculty member, and she's going to be helping us to see what is a reality therapy choice theory concept. And Alice Laby is it, did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, correct.
Mm-hmm. Alice Laby is a scholar, a student learning about choice theory, and she is going to ask some questions. So ladies, take it away.
Okay. Well, I've been fortunate enough to be exposed to the William Glasser Institute through firstly my cousin Sue up in Buffalo and Mona, and I've just been very influenced and learned from Mona, and just questions came up in my mind, Mona, as to I want to find out more about you, you know, nosy New Yorker that I am. So we've come up with a few questions to ask you. And the first is kind of starting at the beginning. So where did you grow up? Was it a small town, farm community, or city? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, I was born and reared. I was born at home, and I was reared in West Virginia, way back in the mountains. And it was a farming community. And my family had been there for years. We lived off the land. We were pretty self-sufficient in that we didn't go to stores to buy things, but we were definitely community in that we, you know, joined in barn raisings and plantings and hog killings and all that kind of stuff as a community.
Wow.
All right. So how do you think that influenced who you are today, Mona?
Oh, it made me who I am today. Because, you know, living off the land. Matter of fact, I read a book fairly recently from an Indian perspective, and that I mean, I was just in tears because it just so resonated with me, living off the land and being there, and, you know, learning conservation and taking, you know, killing the wild animals as our sustenance, but yet at the same time appreciating them and helping conservation and all that kind of stuff. And I think it just really made me, it influenced me to be who I am.
There you go, right?
Yeah.
So the whole conservation movement and climate change and all of those arenas are probably a large part of your quality world picture.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Great. Stuart says Alice can go on now.
Okay. Thanks, old Stuart boy. Moving along with your story, Mona, how would you say your education, your educational experience formed you into this wonderful mentor that we all have at the Glasser Institute? Your education, and were there role models that you had or mentors along the way?
Yes, I definitely had a lot of role models, and they were all family or cousins or, you know, good neighbors. But then I also had books, and I had a lot of role models from the books that I read. And I went to a one-room schoolhouse where one teacher taught grades 1 through 8. And when I was in the 3rd grade, the teacher assigned me to take the first and second graders outside and teach them their numbers and their phonics. And little did I know that that was career building, that I was, that it was something that was influencing who I am and who I would become. Not that I am not a formal teacher, because it's just been kind of observing and learning and a hands-on thing. I have 32 first cousins, and only 2 of those went to college. And the 2 that did go to college were good role models for me, but they also, the ones that didn't go to college, were good role models, because everyone has turned out to be on the high mid-range scale of success in life and relationships and families and so forth. So it's definitely helped.
Where did you go to university?
Okay, well, when I was 15, we moved to Waco, Texas. And I went to a huge school, and it was a culture shock to go to one that had hundreds of students and many different classrooms and moving about and all that kind of stuff. And although I had some good friends, but I did not go right into college. I went right into working. I took some classes in school that was in high school that was career building, and learned to be, type and take shorthand and that kind of stuff. And I went directly into the workforce. And then, but I've always been a learner. I'm a voracious reader, and I read and read and read. And I take notes, not only of what the author is saying, but of the things I'm seeing there that takes me down a rabbit trail that I want to search out and see what the author is not saying. But later in life, I decided, you know what? I want to learn some things, but I only want to learn what I want to learn. So I have all kinds of certifications. I'm certified in mental health and youth counseling and all kinds of things, but I do not have any degrees.
So from all of that education and all of that skill building, what would you say was the most need satisfying?
To challenge the teachers.
Oh, you were one of those.
Yeah, yes. I was one of those. That in the counseling classes and all this, they would tell you that you do this and you do that. And that was even before knowing a lot about Dr. Glassler. Matter of fact, it was through that setting that Destiny put me in touch with Mary Lee Henderson, who is a senior faculty with the Glassler Institute. And she was well known in the Waco community and was revered just as a person of great help and knowledge. And anyway, she told me, she came to a class that I taught one day, and she told me that I needed to take her class of a basic intensive training. And I thought it was kind of like my mom telling me that I needed to do that. So I did. And then she mentored me all the way through certification. I mean, there were other people that helped also, but she was the main stable one that helped me all the way through certification.
So in your challenging, what would you say from a choice theory perspective, what would you say the highest need then was for you at that point? And if it's the same now?
Well, yeah, I think it probably is the same now. That's a good question. Thanks for asking that. It was to see, is that just what someone has come up with, or is there not only is there proof behind it, but if I take it and use it, is it really going to change my life for the better?
Okay.
Is it really going to be worthwhile? Because, I was one of those that questioned the teachers that why do you just tell people? Why don't you help them to self-evaluate?
Okay.
Because I had learned that growing up. That was one of the things that with our little Methodist church and taking communion. It was to self-evaluate that you're not getting involved in something, making a commitment to something that you're not being truthful about. Because if we don't present the truth in everything we do, we're harming ourselves. We just don't even know it. We may think we're pulling up the wool over someone else's eyes, but unless we're really being as genuine as we know how to be at that moment, it's going to bring some kind of a sickness against us or some kind of ill-fated things. And we do it to ourselves because we are free will agents. So it's learning to do things that's going to be not only good for you, but not harmful to anyone else.
Okay, so community was a huge part of who you are and what you stand for then and
Very
now.
huge part.
Okay.
Right. And being, called up by those that were mentors, as in aunts and parents and so forth.
Okay, so love and belonging, connecting, very important, along with a high freedom need. And from a quality school perspective, we really look at that and say, oh, that the learning should be meaningful and useful.
Yes.
Or why bother?
Definitely, definitely, definitely meaningful and useful.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Great.
I mean, that really just that explains it beautifully. It was meaningful and useful. It was something I could take home and use in other areas of life.
Well, Dr. Glasser had a way of saying those things. So
exactly.
That's what he said. I can't take credit for it. So that's our pride and joy in the quality school work. So,
exactly.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Al.
Can I ask, get a little personal?
Sure.
So how old were you when you first were aware of choice theory and Dr. Glasser and got involved in learning about the choice theory?
Okay, well, the term choice theory and reality therapy, I was not familiar with until 1973.
Okay.
And at that time, living in Waco, the McLennan County had an annual old book sale. And I was always drawn to the psychology type books. And I found reality therapy. And a new approach to psychiatry. And it said on the very front that over 3 million people had benefited from reading this book. And I thought, well, I'll become 3,000,001. And I took it, and everything he said in here just resonated with my upbringing. It was like, hey, this may be my cousin or something. And
another cousin.
Yeah, another cousin. And so it was in 73 that I became familiar with William Glasser and reality therapy and choice theory. And then, and I don't remember how many years later it was, maybe, well, I do. I've got it right here in my book. It was about 10 years later that Destiny brought me in touch with Mary Lee Henderson. And she told me, and she said something about reality therapy. And I said, oh, I had that book, because she had given you, she was going to loan it to me to read. And I said, I have it. And so it was from then on that, and I was certified. And once I took the basic intensive training, I was on the fast track to certification. And I was certified in 1996. I took it, went through in the 18 months. And then after certification, I immediately went on to become faculty advisor and then practicum supervisor and et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Very, very, very interesting. From a book. I love that.
Yeah, from a book. So we can learn things from any means.
Yes.
If we're open to it.
Yes, yes, definitely. Okay. So the next question we have is, but I think you've answered a lot of it, is what helped you develop your positive, optimistic outlook on life?
Well, it was self-evaluating. And it continues to be self-evaluating. And looking at the fact that the only person I can control is me. And the things I can control about me is the thoughts I think. And the thoughts I think is going to be a whole lot in being read in my demeanor. And so therefore, because I cannot read anyone else's mind, even though sometimes I think I can, I can't. When I get back to that honesty and genuineness, I cannot know what someone else is thinking. I don't want to project onto them something that I have no way of knowing.
So, Mona, can you say more about your self-evaluation practices? Do you tend to, like, what are the actual questions you ask yourself? And are you posing it against your values or your quality world picture or needs, or specifically, what do you do with self-eval?
I'm just always asking myself, did I really mean that?
Did you really, say it again?
Mean that.
Did you really mean that?
It's what I'm doing, what I'm saying. Did I color it some way? As opposed to being legitimate. Because, you know, in Greek the Week, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about guilt, true guilt and false guilt. And sometimes we are very guilty of not being truthful. And so, and I'm not talking about just blurting out anything. I'm talking about being tactful. But at the same time, just not coloring it, not veiling it, being as open and unveiled as possible. As genuine. And, you know, how do you know what's genuine? I think about the FBI. Well, I worked at a bank for a while. And learning how to, I was a secretary. I wasn't, but, you know, worked at the bank. And they would tell us that you know what the genuine dollar looks like. So whenever you see a counterfeit dollar, the sirens go off and something goes, error, 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 even though it looks very, very genuine. And so it's listening to my wisdom heart to see when that error, error, error is going off, that you're not being completely truthful here, that you're trying to veil it in some way. And so in speaking with people, I have learned to ask them, may I be truthful? And once they give me the permission to, you know, and I'll even, a boss that I worked with one time, I asked that question. I said, well, may I tell you what I see? And he said, no, you may not. I said, okay. And we finished our little, it was in a staff meeting. We finished our little staff meeting. And 2 days later, he called me on the phone. I answered the phone and, you know, and he said, okay, what do you see? He was ready to hear what, you know, yeah. And if someone is not willing, I'm not going to force it on them.
Okay.
And can I be truthful? Well, sure you can. What makes you think you can't be? And if I see them, you know, then I'll leave it. It's not my intention to hurt anyone or to offend. It's never my intention. If I know my wisdom heart at all, it's not my intention. But if I do, I leave it with them and with a higher power or humanity itself to organically, because, you know, our mind, we have this thing called a conscience. Everybody does. We're born with it. And that conscience is that inward knowing of right from wrong. And I saw this program on TV several years ago. It was a bank advertising, and they were offering children things. You know, you know, there's one for you and two for me and one for you and two for me. And they get, no, 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 no. And there were several other things that they would offer for children. And the children, no, that's not fair. That's not fair. And the bank was saying, you know, that children know what's fair and we do too. So bank with us. But yeah, we all know to a degree what is really fair and what isn't. And it's an inward knowing that's in all of us until sometimes it can be educated out of us, not really educated, but beaten out of us. Or, you know, there's things that can happen that can, where we don't trust our own knowing.
Yeah.
And as we can trust our own knowing and then see it not blow up in our face, we can go deeper.
So for the most part, when you are trying to share what you see, so in a sense, share your perceived world, share knowledge that you have, perhaps share values that you keep within you, are there times where in self-evaluation you say, this is probably not the best time to do this? You know, that do you just always ask permission? And if they say yes, that you may still think this isn't a great time, or that you're able to just, you know, you're following in choice theory terms, in reality therapy terms, you're following the client's lead, so to speak.
I think
that what helps drive you?
This what?
Is that what helps drive your decision-making, your self-evaluation?
It really does. It really does. Because, you know, for one thing, in teaching so many 12-step programs, if a person is not ready to face their errors, you can't. You know, you can shine the brightest light in the world into their eyeballs, but if they're not willing to look at it, they're not.
Right.
And so I do a lot of just, you know, letting it organically begin to work in that way. To plant a seed, and if it grows, it grows, and if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. One thing among the many that I've been so taken with you, Mona, is you refer to the times that you've worked with prisoners. Can you tell us more about that and how you've perhaps been able to get your message across that they are a person of infinite worth and value?
Well, I really believe that we all are, that everyone has worth and value, and that, you know, that we're all just smart and we have talents and gifts and ideas and things, and we just are. But there are others that can really override us, and we get to think that we don't matter. That we don't matter. And so I initially worked with the prison system as a volunteer. The Federal Bureau had mandated that the inmates had to have a certain amount of life skills training, and the particular transitional housing was not able to keep someone there to teach those classes. And so Mary Lee Henderson referred me to, said, you know, she does all kinds of time management, blah, blah, blah. And I think she'd be good. And so I went there on a volunteer basis, that I would go there all day Saturday and Sunday afternoon every 6 weeks. And then after a while, they asked me if they hired me. And I said, well, yeah, okay, might as well. So I took it on, and then it was every week, every one of them had to come to the class. It was mandatory. They had to come. And so did everyone get me? No, as a matter of fact, I had several of the inmates that tell me right up front they didn't understand a word I said, especially if they was new coming in from being out the prison itself and coming into the transitional part. And my class was starting off with, okay, I'm going to say something out loud and do an action, and I want you to repeat it with me 3 times. Everything is the way that it seems. Nothing is the way that it seems. So I could see how that they, would think, what in the world's going on with this crazy lady? But my motive was to help them to I will not tell you what to think. I cannot. I mean, I might can, but doesn't mean you will. But if I help you to think, if I want to mess with your mind, that's my goal in life. I want to mess with your mind. Agree with me, disagree with me, I'm okay with it either way. But I want you to think about something that's different. I want to mess with your mind. And I'm, willing to give you where I'm coming from and to hear where you're coming from to see if I'm broaching, or if I'm right, to really begin to see, because there's no way we can know everything. There's just too many things to know. But we as human beings are more alike than we are different.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we can begin to see that commonality and begin to see how that nothing's the way it seems, everything's the way it seems. And when you bring it together and realize, you know what, I've been disappointed because I thought something was what it wasn't. And that maybe, just maybe, because this crazy lady is telling me to think about things or to self-evaluate, maybe there's some sanity in it. And then leave it up to them to organically begin to see the fruit of it, let the seed be planted. And I don't want to root it up. I don't want to do anything. I just want to live and let live. And so always hold myself as well as the other person in high regard. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No. I was prematurely going to expand on the question here. I was just wondering then, from Dr. Glasser, who talked to us about the 4 different roles that we have the opportunity to play with people, so whether it's the counselor role or the lead manager role or the teacher role or the friend role. So where would you say you work with prisoners? Where did you tend to center?
The lead management role.
You think so? Yeah.
Yeah. That there are certain things that I need to teach you.
Okay.
And as, again, if I know my own wisdom heart, I live what I teach.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times that I won't teach it if I'm not living it. I'll just back away from it.
Okay.
And but I'm always open to learn, because there's more to learn. There's more to learn. But here's kind of a kindergarten way of starting on evaluating, on starting on being truthful, of getting a job and holding a job, and realizing there's some baby steps that you can take that will really help you to grow and to mature. There are some baby steps that you can take in blocking your thinking so that you are not looking at what is mine and what is yours is mine. So that we can begin to realize that, you know what, we all belong. We're all a part of humanity, and it's respecting and understanding one another and giving a little grace.
So interesting then, because it sounds like you're also choosing to be a teacher by providing information, but understanding that the lead management perspective of it was going to be in the middle of it to help you always give them rationale and purpose for the information.
Right, right. And with every class I teach, I have a tendency to, regardless of who I'm, where it is that I will start off with quotes from other people, but they'll be quite diverse. And then, you know, which one do you lean toward? Which one do you agree with more? Which one do you see more truth in than in another? Or do you see no truth in any of them? And again, you know, I'm here to make suggestions. I'm here to help to expand your thinking. Because one of my philosophies is, if I give you information, I may or may not add to your knowledge. But if I cause you to think, I've added to your stature. And I want to help you grow. And in working with students, not as a teacher, as an assistant, in that I worked with 4 colleges here in the Waco area, and I would teach life skills. I would teach study habits. I would teach time management. I would teach relationship building. I would go in and, you know, and it's always in, I want to help you to grow. I want to help you to overcome. I want to help you to be who you really are, because it's a gem. It's a gem to become the light in which you were created. And that regardless, and again, you know, that I make them agree with me, disagree with me, you know, regardless of our conception, the office of parenthood is honorable. And regardless of our conception, we are a person of infinite worth and value, someone that belongs on planet Earth. Whether it was taken by force, whether it was given by force, that does not diminish the value of that human being that was produced. And it does not degrade the vessel that chose to carry that human being to fruition. Because we are all have infinite worth and value. And who knows what that era in some people's mind could bring to the world that would be life-changing. I mean, there are many, many, many that are.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have one more thing to add.
Okay, because we're running out of time.
Linda, you asked what I do. I write. So I've written a poem to Mona.
Oh, all right.
It's called Wisdom Heart. This past year, I've been lucky, I know, to learn from a woman who has helped me to grow. Her name is Mona Dunkin. She hails from Texas. Every week she teaches us to shed what perplexes. Mona rides into each day's new light on a horse that brings us optimistic insight. We are all flawed and fabulous, she shares on a Monday. We take in her ideas, but perhaps on a Sunday, we may have made a mistake or two, but we must learn we are more than our worst decision. Thank you, Mona, that's true. We cannot harm someone else without harming ourselves. And now into that idea, we must delve. Our bodies are programmed to heal, but how to heal others is what Mona has taught to sisters and brothers, to prisoners and teachers, to advocates of choice theory, which Dr. William Glasser first wrote, and others follow sincerely. I have tried to incorporate all she has said and be smart. And then, Mona, I too will have a wisdom heart.
Oh, wow, Alice. That is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So touching. Touching, touching, touching. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll send it to you.
Please do. Please do.
I will.
And thank you, ladies, for making this suggestion. And I appreciate it very, very much. And your knowledge and your hearts are very, very special. And those of you that are watching, I love you. I love all of you. And those that you are watching later, we'll go ahead and close it out for today. And thank you for being here, and many blessings.